Hey there, thank you for joining us. Today we are going to discuss a very trending topic in the digital world, which is the no-code revolution. To help us understand all the pros and cons of the no-code movement, we are joined today by Wes McDowell, who is an experienced web strategist with a very deep knowledge of digital marketing and user experience. Wes is also a YouTuber, podcaster, and trainer. And in his trainings, he focuses very heavily on creating websites that will best showcase your business, clarify the message, and help you convert your potential customers. I hope you enjoy our today's discussion, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
This video was brought to you by TenWeb, an automated WordPress platform designed for agencies. Automate hosting, speed optimization, migration, site building and management, and skyrocket your agency growth. Sign up for a 14-day free trial and experience true automation.
Hey Wes, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey Reg, thanks for having me.
So to start things off, I would like to know more about your career. You currently do so many things, graphic design, you have experience in that, digital marketing, and you are a web strategist. Can you tell us more about the path that brought you here?
Yeah, so when you say graphic design and web design and all that stuff, that is more in my past. That's more the stuff that I started with. So just a little background, I started my own web design, graphic design company back like in 2005 to some degree. Within that, I had a few like day jobs, but I slowly built my own business called The Deep End, which was graphic design, web design. At a certain point, I switched more toward the web design part, not so much doing logos and stuff anymore. And then at a certain point, I started really focusing less on calling myself a web designer, because to me, that kind of has a connotation of we're making something pretty for client, like more like it's an art piece rather than this is a sales tool for businesses. So what I started really doing is becoming more of a student of web strategy, psychology principles, everything that needs to go into a website that makes it actually convert and do something for a business. So I started learning all that stuff. And then I was still working with clients on those kinds of websites, charging more for them now, by the way, because I'm bringing the strategy to it. But I started my YouTube channel where I wanted basically to teach other small business owners how to do it themselves to some degree, with the whole thing of like, well, some people will actually just want me to they'll just want to hire me to do it for them. So it's kind of a business move in that way. And now it's taken a transition to where I don't even work with clients anymore. Now it's all my education materials free on YouTube and my podcast, as well as paid. I've got a paid program called the Profitable Website Launchpad that teaches people, small business owners, how to create the messaging and the copy and design and build their own sites from scratch themselves. So that's where I'm at now, pure education at this point.
I love how we are using the inbound methodology to provide the good quality content and then get the clients for you. And you are really great at that. So we watched your videos and podcasts, and it's very informative. So diving directly into our main topic discussion, which is the no-code revolution. So how does the no-code help companies succeed in their business?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a coder, right? So the whole problem with websites is in the old days when it was all just kind of coding, and you'd have a developer make it for you and then they would hand it off to you. Even if it's in WordPress, even if it's a theme, it was always a little hard to go in there as, forget the small business owner for a second who knows nothing. For me, someone who knows I know enough about websites and the marketing and the design aspect, the UX part. I never knew code. I mean, there was a part where I tried to learn and forget it, couldn't do it. But then when I started using, the drag and drop page builders, I use Elementor all the time. That's how I teach it. And what a game changer, really, to be able to, because in my paid program, I'm teaching small business owners. Some of them are in their 60s and 70s who did not grow up with computers at all. they're now able to make their own websites. Like that is a huge revolution for any business owner to not only be able to create it themselves, but be able just to take inspiration of other websites they like and be able to just visually do it and then change it as they need to add more pages or change the text on a web page. So it's a huge game changer for anyone out there.
Yeah, it certainly opens up a lot more opportunities for no coders, as the name of it suggests.
I can make my own websites now. Like I used to have to hire someone who would take my Photoshop documents and translate them into a functional website. So not anymore.
And what are some of the limitations of the no code?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's limitations. There definitely, well, from what I know about it, I have been able to find, like whenever I want to do something specific, which isn't very often, but when I do, I find that there's always like these little add-ons, like for Elementor. There's all these different third-party, I know you've got your own tool as well, but sorry to bring up the competition, but there's like all these little add-ons that you can pretty much do almost anything. But here's what I'll say about the limitations. Again, we're treading in that water of, are we treating our website like it's an art project or like it's a tool for business? And there's a lot of things that may be limitations, but you have to ask yourself, is that something you really need? Is that something your clients and your customers need out of your website? Or is that kind of your own ego, like wanting the coolest website? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it also like depending on what kind of functionality you have. In some cases, it's just impossible to build those websites with no code, depending on how much customization they need.
Yeah. Well, and then when we're talking about like webs, because what I focus on completely is websites for like conversion-based websites for service businesses, meaning it's informational. It's presenting a case for you as a business. It gives you like all the information you need in the right order, and then a way to get in touch with you and schedule something with you. So yeah, when we're talking about a website that's more like an app, for instance, then yeah, that's not even in my world of stuff I touch. So for me, I've run into no limitations really.
Yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention that actually we are not competing with Elementor, and 10 Web Builder is based on Elementor. We added a bunch of our stuff on Elementor to like improve the experience.
Awesome.
So we are fine with that. Yeah,
that's cool. All right, cool.
So because of those limitations, probably some developers prefer to go with traditional routes instead of like using the no code. And not just developers, some people prefer to use HTML, CSS, even for a very basic websites. Do you think this is going to change the further we go, or there will be like certain category of people who will always stay out of no code?
Well, I think there's always need for code, right? Because even like me knowing nothing about it, the no code, like the Elementor, the programs, they all have coding in them. So there's always going to be jobs for people who like to code. They will be making the programs, right? So, but in terms of like, I can't imagine going forward that people are going to embrace long-term keeping going with JavaScript and CSS and all these things. It's just I don't know. I mean, honestly, you're asking the wrong guy in that, I think, because I can't imagine wanting to do that. But then again, my brain doesn't work like that. But some people do think in code. And I do know that they're teaching kids at a very young age these days how to code. There's coding camps and stuff. So, but I do think there's always going to be calls for that, you know, in technology in general. In websites, I'm not so sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, you already mentioned that you yourself use no code and you recommend it to your clients. Do you also teach that during your master classes or trainings?
Yeah. So whenever I teach how to create a website, whether it's for free on YouTube, I've got a few videos that are tutorial based. But then in my paid program, that's 4 modules. The first 3 are basically getting all your content together. My pro tips on that. But then module 4 is, we're in Elementor. We're building the actual website. We're taking the content we've created in the first 3 modules, and now we're making the website. And the way I teach it, because here's the thing, even if you can master the concepts of a page builder, not everyone is a designer, meaning not everyone is going to know how things should be laid out and colors and all that. So I've made it easier on my students, and I basically provide these templates that serve the content that we've created together. So basically, they're able to take these pre-made blocks and they choose for the hero section. Here's 5 different versions of it. Choose one. Then for the benefit section, 5 versions of that. Choose one that you like. So basically, you stack them all together like Legos, and then you just customize the styles in it. And that way everyone gets a site that's different and feels very unique to them, while still using a fairly templatized method.
Yeah. Love the comparison with Lego. And I never thought about it, but now that I think it's really very similar, you're just taking blocks and dropping them together into one thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have already talked about Elementor, but what kind of other no-code tools do you recommend to people? On what would you recommend to our viewers? And maybe tell us like which tool would work better for each business industry.
Okay, well, I kind of just use Elementor, to be honest with you. Like, do you have any examples of other kinds of things? Because like Elementor is basically all I really use. Like, it's WordPress, Elementor. Another tool I use would be Calendly, because that's another big part of what I don't know if you would count that as like a no code kind of thing, but the sites I advise people on are pretty narrow in scope.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of it for me.
Yeah, there are also like besides WordPress, there are also other CMSs that provide like no-code website builders. Mm-hmm. And I think Calendly can be considered, I'm not sure, but it still automates some processes that were previously done by developers. So maybe. Calendly and the other, the other ones, the other CMSs, I don't really work in. So I would just say for most people out there that are putting together a pretty fairly basic website for their business or for their clients, I mean, I wouldn't get too far away from WordPress and Elementor. I've heard of Beaver Builder. I've never used it. I think once you get too far out of that realm and you start going into these more specialized, smaller companies, I would worry that they may not be around for that long. Like, at least with Elementor and WordPress, like, I don't feel like they're going anywhere, and I feel like they're always advancing. But if you're going with someone newer, who knows if they'll be around in 2 years, and then you might have to redo everything. Yeah, definitely. And the basic WordPress builder like Gutenberg is developing as well. So there is a lot of competition inside WordPress. And then there are other CMSs included in it as well. I have a question. So you mentioned that you always prefer to go with WordPress and Elementor. Do you think this is because you are like focused in digital marketing, that it simplifies all of your tasks, or maybe there is some other reason behind it?
Well, it's something that I've tried a lot of things over the years. Like, I've had clients when I used to work with them who would request, like I had one who was like, we need Joomla. Like, I don't know why, but they needed Joomla. What a nightmare. Like, I had to work with my developer, and that was just the biggest nightmare project. I just feel like WordPress it's like, why not? It's perfectly serviceable for just about everything. Elementor, same thing. And when we're talking about working with lots of different clients, I think it's always best to become an expert at something and really not only in the knowledge base, but also just really getting good at something so that you've got a process. So you're not having to go back. Imagine if you're working with clients and for every client, you're choosing a new CMS and a new page builder. I mean, that's crazy, because at the end of the day, you'll spend 5 times as much time on all these projects as if you had a really repeatable process and system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And yeah, WordPress is totally winning against anything else, with around 30% of all worldwide websites built inside WordPress.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess I would say too, like we're living in a world now with all these funnel builders, click funnels and all that kind of thing. I've not been a huge fan of those. When you can have a WordPress site with Elementor or something like Elementor, I would always prefer that to signing up for like a subscription to, a ClickFunnels, or what's the other one? There's a few others like that, like Unbounce or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel like those are just
Unbounce are probably the most famous ones in that category.
Yeah, I just feel like they're Band-Aid solutions. I feel like it's a workaround for having an actual website. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, it more looks like they took like very small part of websites and are excelling at it.
And I see the point, because they're making it really simple for people. But I think there's other ways that are also equally simple that gives you more of a full experience. Like now you can have a whole website. I know you still need landing pages for certain things, but people talk about funnels and websites like they're completely different things. But you can have a landing page on your website. Like it's not a one or the other kind of thing. So I'd rather see people learn the right way to do it than just kind of do what's easiest.
So one of the recent trends in website development is the use of AI in it. So I'd like to know if you are familiar with some website builders that use AI, and what's your opinion about this concept overall?
I have not actually used one. I'm sure it's probably at a stage now where it's not great, if I would guess. I only say that because I got, I saw a Facebook ad for a company that's basically, it says they do AI copywriting, like marketing copywriting. So I'm like, this sounds interesting. If nothing else, I want to see if it's something I can recommend on my YouTube channel. I tried it. I put in my own copy, and their AI robot spit out the most like unintelligible copy I've ever read. So I think AI is probably going to be somewhere soon. I don't know that it is now. Do you have any experience with like AI web building? What do you think about it?
So actually, the example you brought about content writing, I used to work in a company that was around content writing completely. And actually, that's probably the worst place for AI right now. The AI in writing is really bad, especially if it's like fiction or content that has to make sense. In case of poetry, sometimes it's fine because it's like very abstract, so it's okay. And
AI poets are great, but
yeah, AI poets are great, but like fiction writers not so.
No.
So yeah, my experience comes from like 10web's AI builder. And what we did is we created a tool that helps people to like write the URL of the website that they like. And using that, our tool completely recreates the websites without copying any single line of code, and copies them inside WordPress. And after that, they can use the already mentioned 10web builder based on Elementor to do some changes on it. So while the goal here is not just to give like a completely fully functional website with like, I don't know, everything inside it, but it simplifies the work of developers a lot, because you are not starting from scratch. You saw something and our tool creates a template out of it that you can quickly edit afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, I get that then, because it's basically recreating something versus I was imagining more like it was trying to be a designer on its own, which I don't know that maybe someday like that could be something, but like creating something out of nothing basically. But
Mhm.
it's taking inspiration from somewhere else and kind of recreating. Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's automating the development more than instead of
Yeah.
the design.
Okay. I can see
Okay.
that.
Um, so yeah, that's one of the trends I see in no code. But would you like to add something about this topic? Like, what do you think the no code movement will take people to?
Well, I think it's a really exciting time for no code because basically what this it allows small business owners to take control of um, their own destiny, basically, because websites are super important to the success of any business. There's a lot of talk now about social media taking over websites, but we know that social media serves a very different function than a website does. The good news of the reason why people want social media to take over websites is because it's easy. It's like it's just you go on there, you upload something. It's there's no coding to be done. And websites now, I can say, are pretty similar to that. It's definitely more work than just posting to social, but once you get it up and running, you've got something now that's basically can be your number one salesperson all day, every day, if you get it right. So I think it's going to be a huge movement for small business owners and marketers, um, and just a time saver too, because I can make a website now in just a tenth the time that it used to take between me and my developer, the back and forth, the sketching, the Photoshop documents, the now it's just like I don't even I do a brief sketch before I do a website now, and then I just make it. So huge time savings.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. It was really insightful. And I would also like to talk to you a little bit about your YouTube channel. So
Okay.
you created it around 5 years ago. And one of your first videos was about like 5 things that business owners should remove from their websites.
Yep.
Do you remember those 5 points?
I remember one of them being social media icons. That's always a big one, because what people always like want to display their social media icons all over their site because other people do basically. But we need to remember we don't want to we want to use social media to get people to our websites, not shoving them back to the social media. That's one. Um, one one would I don't remember the other ones actually. It was 5 years ago, so many videos since.
We can actually watch it together, and I would like to know if your perspective changed
Okay.
from it,
Oh,
like
I'm
from
sure they're
five
still
years
not supposed
ago.
to be there. I'm sure that these are things that are just more widely accepted now that you don't have on your website. But
Okay.
if your website's a little cobwebby, you're not alone. Today, we're going to look at 5 things you need to remove from your website immediately. If your website was designed a few years ago, there's probably a list of things on there that you can probably do without. Some just make you look outdated, and some are actually security risks. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about are social media icons in your header. Now, I know you probably want to get more followers. That's a common thread I see with a lot of my clients. They're very into their social media and they want people to know that they're a part of all those forums. So the problem with having them in such a prominent place as the header is they're really brightly colored. So you've got done all this work to get people to your website, and now you're just inviting them to leave. Because when you put something in such a prominent position and it's colored so prominently, you're really just inviting clicks away from your website and onto your social media platforms, which you may think is a good thing. You may think it's great that they go to your Facebook page, but what happens on Facebook? They'll see posts from their friends. They'll get lost in the world of Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest or whatever it is, and they probably won't remember to come back to your site. All right, so what do you do instead? I recommend using social widgets instead. So basically, they allow people to like your page or tweet about you or whatever it is, all within the environment of your website. They don't have to go anywhere, which is brilliant. And they're still buttons, they're just smarter. The second thing is obvious stock photos. Okay, so photos, especially really large ones, have definitely been shown to increase conversions and engagement. But if they're not deemed as authentic by your audience, particularly with millennials who really value authenticity, they're just not going to buy it. And I think you all know what we're talking about when we say obvious stock photos, the corporate handshake, the light bulb, all these things that have basically become a punchline at this point. In fact, there are entire websites devoted to making fun of these kinds of stock photos, so just don't use them.
I would like to stop here and ask, like, so since that time, the quantity of stock photos increased by a very wide margin. So do you still think that using stock photos inside a website is a better idea? And what would you recommend instead, like organizing shootings or creating your own icons?
Yeah, so but notice what I said was the obvious stock photo. I'm not a detractor from any stock photos. I use them all the time. There are good ones and there are bad ones. So what we don't want are the really cheesy ones where people are, like cheering, like the freezing their fist, and they're like, what I look for in a stock photo is, well, first of all, we should kind of talk about what kind of photos we should be using on a website. More than anything else, I push what I call happy customer photos, which is basically it's a representation of what your customer or client, what their after state of after you've helped them, right? So what that usually means is kind of a feeling of happiness, of calmness, not that, again, like literally jumping for joy and like, or just like screaming at their computer in frustration. Look for, look for moments that feel like they're authentic, that like someone actually captured versus having posed it, if that makes sense. So I always talk about this one guy. He's a photographer on like Shutterstock and Adobe Stock named Jacob Lund. And his stuff is gorgeous. It's beautiful. And you can probably guess that they're stock, but they look really nice and they just feel authentic and they feel, yeah, because at the end of the day, you don't need to schedule your own photo shoot with random people. There's plenty of good stock out there, so use it. Don't settle for the cheesy stuff.
A really great point. I absolutely loved it. And that's something I will take into consideration in future as well. Should we continue?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only are they cliche, but when people see them and know their stock, they're going to lose faith and they're going to lose trust in your business. Now, there's two things you could do instead. One is a little more expensive. That involves custom photography. So if you have a budget for that, it might be.
I think we can move to the third point because you covered this.
Yeah. From your site are email links. So if you have staff bio pages, anything like that, a very common thing used to be to include a little link to send them an email. Now there's a few problems with this. First one up is they actually attract email spam. People will go in, they're on the lookout for this kind of thing, and this is how you get onto some pretty bad lists. And the other thing that's bad, just from a more user experience point of view, think about when you click on one of those. It opens up some kind of native email program on your computer. For me, it opens up the Apple email program, which I don't use. So then I have to go back and right-click and save the email address, then go back to my Gmail and type it in there. It's just a really poor user experience. So what I definitely recommend doing instead are using email forms. Emails sent using forms are great because they're trackable. You can route them into different folders and subfolders with your email program. Just for me and through my website, I can filter out intern requests from client requests, so I know what I'm looking at. All right, the next thing up is a little more.
So I would like to again ask a follow-up question regarding this point. First of all, do you think this is still the case? And do you think kind of forms work better right now than for lead generation specifically than like providing some, I don't know, ebooks or like using that technique for the lead generation?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about ebooks, now we're talking about lead magnets. That's a completely separate conversation. But I still think, yeah, I don't ever like to have my email address published on a website. Again, it leads to spam. The form is better for that. That's for people who actually want to get started with you, want to schedule an appointment, consultation, what have you. The other way to do it is the Calendly thing that we were talking about. So basically, rather than them filling out a form to like request information, you're basically letting them actually book a time that you call them back, which I love. I think that's way better than dealing with all the back and forth. But then the other thing that you just brought up is the lead magnet, which is separate. So what I like to see on any website is the primary call to action, which is usually, schedule an appointment, request a consultation, that kind of thing. And then the secondary call to action, which is if you're not ready to talk to anyone yet, how about this piece of information that's going to solve a problem for you right now? And then they sign up with their email address, and then it just automatically gets emailed to them. So I think it's important to have both of those things. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. It kind of depends on the objective, why you are getting these leads and what those leads are expecting from you, depending on the specific form. And another question about, again, forms is, so there is a debate like whether you should include those subscription forms in the bottom of your website or in the top section. Like, do they need to know more about what you are offering before seeing that form, or it's better to have it like before fold until they start scrolling, or maybe both? What's your opinion on that?
Well, it depends on what the ask is, right? So is it something where if it's promising to solve a problem, or if it's on a landing page, for instance, I've got my masterclass that is represented, the opt-in form is represented, it's a lead magnet, by the way, represented on my homepage. It's not at the very top. You have to scroll a little down to get it. But then there's a whole other page just for that opt-in. I send people there from YouTube and from my podcast. So obviously when it's a landing page, you want it to be right up top, especially when you're not asking for much. You're just asking for an email address. It's not a sale, right? But if we're talking about setting up a consultation or an appointment, that's generally not going to happen the second someone comes to your homepage, unless we're talking about an emergency kind of service, in which case they probably should be calling you anyway. Like it's like a plumbing emergency. People shouldn't be having to put in their email address for you to get back to them. Like they should just be able to call you. So it's really about, do they have enough information yet to be confident doing this, giving you their information? And the less you're asking for, the more likely it is they'll do it in a shorter amount of time. It's all individual based on what you need and what your goals are.
Perfect. Now we know everything about forms and where to include them.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on.
A little more under the radar. You may not even know that you have it. If you use videos anywhere on your site, you're going to want to disable the YouTube suggested videos. So what happens is when a YouTube video plays, at the end of it, it makes some pretty interesting suggestions for other videos you might want to watch. At best, they might just be unrelated, and at worst, they could actually be showing videos of your competitors. Either way, it just clutters up the look of your site, and it gives people way too many options that have absolutely nothing to do with what you want them to do once they're on your site. Now here's an easy fix. From the video player on YouTube, click the Share option, then click Embed, then click Show More, which will open up more options. Scroll down and uncheck the Show Suggested Videos when the video finishes option. Then grab the new embed code and you're all set. All right, the next thing to talk about is PDFs. So PDFs used to be a workaround for non-content managed websites So like if you wanted to add a new menu or a new document of some kind, you wouldn't have to change the code in your website. You would just make a new PDF, upload it, and replace the other one so that people could download it and get whatever newest information you were offering. But these days, nearly every website is content managed, meaning WordPress, something where you can log into the backend and quickly change information without actually having to touch the code. So basically, these PDFs are irrelevant at this point. And I found restaurants to be especially guilty of this practice. They love to change out their menus using a PDF rather than actually changing it on the website. And there's a few other problems with PDFs as well. They're hard for search engines to read. They're not directly editable by your content management system, and your visitors can't really share them easily. So with WordPress or a similar CMS, you can put all of this information into a content managed website to where you can change the information by simply logging in, changing the text, clicking save, and you're ready to go. All right, I'm Wes McDowell with The Deep End, and stay tuned for more helpful tips like this. See you next time.
Yeah, guys, don't forget to subscribe to his channel. As you saw from this video from 5 years ago, there are many points right here that are very relevant. Actually, all 5 points are very relevant up until today. And I especially love the last 2 ones because they were so simple, but at the same time, not many people will think of it from that perspective. Like, okay, should I turn off the suggested videos or no? Maybe many people will not even know about the functionality or that Google has difficulties reading PDFs. So yeah, it's great to see that your video from 5 years ago is talking about something that's very, very relevant up until today.
Thank you. Yeah, try to keep it up to date. There's definitely that is one of my very first videos. It's actually kind of hard to watch some of the old ones because I just feel like, come a long way since then.
Oh, your dog just came to the screen.
Oh yeah, he's the mascot. He hangs out here.
It's so cute.
Thank you.
Actually, to sum things up, I would like to ask you a couple of Blitz questions about like relevant topics. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Blogging or podcasting as a way of consuming information?
Podcast.
What is worse, good user experience with bad UX or good UX with bad UI?
This is one of those things, like my brain always gets a little confused with the UX and UI because like user interface is literally just like the layout stuff more. So I don't know. Ask the question again. Sorry.
Good UI with bad UX or a good UX with bad UI?
Well, good UX is trumps everything else. Like you can't have good UX and have bad UI really. So I think that's kind of a trick question. If it's a good user experience, then that's all you need to know. Then it's good.
This one was not such a Blitz question, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Office life or remote?
Remote. All day.
Jim Carrey in The Mask or Yes Man?
The Mask.
Okay.
Did anyone see Yes Man? Come on.
I did.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Mask is superior.
Yeah, it's iconic for sure.
Yeah. Do you say yes a lot in your life?
Yes.
So
yes, man.
This was it from me. Thank you for this wonderful discussion. We started with no code, then we went to a deep dive in website optimization, more digital marketing, and it was super informative. I am very happy that you accepted our invitation and shared all of this with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And the last question, what would be the best way for our users to stay in touch with you besides your YouTube channel?
My podcast. It's called The Profitable Website. It's packed with not only not only my tips, but I get some great expert guests on as well. So if you want to keep up to date on digital marketing, website optimization, everything that you as a small business owner or you as a marketer working with business owners, just to keep up to date on. So it's called The Profitable Website. You can find it on all the podcatchers out there.
Perfect. Thank you so much once again.
All right. Thanks, Reg.
Goodbye.
This video was brought to you by Timeweb, an automated WordPress platform designed for agencies. Automate hosting, speed optimization, migration, site building and management, and skyrocket your agency growth. Sign up for a 14-day free trial and experience true automation.